For 2.5 million years, Smilodon fatalis reigned as North America's apex predator. Armed with saber teeth up to 11 inches long and jaws engineered for a 95-degree attack. But every perfect weapon comes with a hidden cost. The very skull that crowned it king now exposes evolution's greatest paradox. That design brilliance can become a death sentence. Fossil records from the Brea Tar Pits prove these iconic teeth were 40% weaker than a lion's, frequently shattered and left even the strongest hunters to starve. If specialization made Smilodon unstoppable, how did it end in absolute extinction while lesser predators survived? The answer is etched in bone, and what it reveals may redefine everything we believe about survival itself. Smilodon fatalis was built around a single audacious idea: turn a predator's mouth into a weapon of surgical precision. Each upper canine could stretch from 7 to 11 inches, longer than a steak knife, thinner than a human finger at the tip. These teeth weren't just oversized, they were engineered for a killing method no other mammal could match. The skull's architecture reveals the price of such ambition. Smilodon's jaws didn't open like a modern lion's, they unhinged to a staggering 95 degrees, nearly twice the gape of any big cat alive today. Such a wide arc wasn't for show. It was the only way to clear those saber teeth past the lower jaw and drive them deep into the softest parts of a victim's throat or belly. The mechanics behind this gape are written in bone. The temporomandibular joint, where jaw meets skull, is set farther back and reinforced, trading everyday biting strength for the ability to swing the mouth open like a bear trap. Muscle attachment scars along the lower jaw and skull base point to a system designed for speed and reach, not brute force. The canines themselves are long, flattened blades, their cross-section more like a stiletto than a spike. Enamel is thin and sharp-edged, perfect for slicing, disastrous for crushing. This arrangement forced every kill into a narrow window of opportunity. Smilodon couldn't simply bite and hold like a lion. It had to pin prey with its forelimbs, lever the jaws open to their anatomical limit, and deliver a single downward strike. The teeth were so long that the lower jaw had to swing nearly vertical before the sabers could clear flesh. Anything less, and the weapon stayed holstered. Fossil skulls from the Brea Tar Pits preserve these features in almost clinical detail. Rows of saber teeth, some still razor-sharp after 10,000 years, stand out against jaws that look impossibly wide. The physical evidence leaves no doubt. Evolution spent millions of years perfecting a tool for one job, then built the entire predator around it. This was not versatility. This was commitment. Jaw, tooth, and skull fused into a single-purpose machine. In the world of Ice Age predators, Smilodon's mouth was both masterpiece and gamble. Predators live and die by the physics of force. In Smilodon, every bite was a high-stakes experiment in mechanical engineering. Modern biomechanical tests using 3D scans and digital stress maps reveal how this cat's skull handled the loads of a killing strike. The results are as precise as they are troubling. The saber teeth, so impressive at first glance, were built for downward stabbing, not for wrestling with a struggling animal. When pressure came from the side, the numbers tell a different story. These canines were about 40% weaker than the teeth of a modern lion. Finite element models show the critical flaw. A downward force, delivered with the help of powerful neck muscles and braced by the forelimbs, sent most of the load safely through the thick upper jaw. But as soon as a prey animal twisted or bucked, anything less than perfect control, the saber teeth became liabilities. Stress spiked at the base of the canines, right where fossil pathologists find the most frequent breaks. The skull itself, compensated with reinforced bone along the jaw, hinge, and cheek. But even this wasn't enough when lateral forces exceeded the saber's design. UCLA's Saber-Tooth project confirmed the risk in the lab. Mechanical tests on 3D printed Smilodon canines, modelled from Brea specimens, snapped under sideways loads that a lion's tooth would survive. The difference comes down to geometry. Smilodon's blades were long and narrow, with thin enamel for slicing flesh, not absorbing impact. No carnivore today would bet its life on a tooth this fragile. Every successful kill depended on a choreography of muscle and bone. The forelimbs had to anchor the prey, the neck to drive the head down, the jaws to open wide. Any slip, and the system failed catastrophically. Evolution had engineered a weapon that was devastating under one set of conditions, but vulnerable the moment the rules changed. The evidence is written in the stress lines of fossilized jaws and the fracture patterns of saber teeth. The perfect predator, it turns out, was always one bad angle away from disaster. Broken sabers are more than a curiosity. They're a statistical reality in the Brea Tar Pit's collection. Out of every 100 Smilodon fatalis skulls, 5 to 10 show clear evidence of major canine fractures. That's not a rounding error. That's a recurring failure in an apex predator's primary weapon. Museum records list specimens like LACMHC 2334, a skull with a right canine snapped clean and the root rimmed by swollen, infected bone. The preparators who first cleaned this fossil found the telltale signs of healing. Extra bone laid down around the break, a rough, porous texture where infection struggled to wall itself off. This cat survived for weeks, maybe months, after losing its saber, but the damage left a permanent mark. Other cases, such as LACMHC 2629 and LACMHC 2441, show similar stories. Fracture lines running across the canine, sometimes just an inch or two from the tip, sometimes closer to the gum line. In some, the break is sharp and clean. In others, the tooth splintered and left the pulp exposed, a direct route for bacteria into the jaw. Survey methods at Brea are as rigorous as any forensic lab. Teams catalogued thousands of skulls, logging each instance of dental trauma, noting whether the break showed signs of healing or remained a fresh wound at death. Healed fractures tell us these were not always instant death sentences, but the price of survival was steep. Chronic jaw infections, abscesses, and bone loss are common companions to these injuries. CT scans and radiographs reveal the bone's response. New growth around the socket, pockets of dead tissue. Sometimes even the ghost of the missing tooth root sealed inside. In a few cases, preparators found fragments of Saber embedded in the jaw, a grim souvenir of a hunt gone wrong. These statistics aren't a fluke of one pit or one unlucky generation. Across the entire 40,000-year fossil sequence at Brea, the same pattern repeats. A steady trickle of Smilodons with broken sabers and the skeletal aftermath of infection. The numbers don't lie. Evolution's masterpiece weapon failed often enough to leave a permanent scar in the fossil record. And unlike a lion, which can survive on backup teeth, Smilodon had no substitute. When its saber snapped, the consequences were written in bone. Tooth surfaces tell a story that goes far beyond breakage. Under the lens of a scanning electron microscope, Smilodon's canines reveal a landscape shaped by a single kind of meal. The micro-wear textures, fine, parallel scratches running in tight formation, match the slicing of soft tissue, not the crushing or grinding seen in more versatile predators. There are almost no pits or gouges, the marks left by gnawing bone or chewing tough hide. Instead, the enamel is polished smooth, as if each cat spent its life filleting the same menu of oversized, slow-moving prey. Chemical signatures inside the teeth confirm what the micro-wear patterns suggest. Stable isotope analysis measuring the ratios of carbon and nitrogen locks Smilodon's diet to a narrow band of Ice Age megafauna. Bison, camels, ground sloths. The isotope values cluster tightly, with little of the spread seen in predators that switched between prey types or scavenged whatever was available. Each skull is a chemical time capsule, recording a lifetime spent hunting within the same ecological lane. When these prey animals declined, the record shows no shift to smaller game or alternate food sources. The isotope cluster just grows smaller, as if the cats were vanishing along with their favorite meals. The consequences are written in bone. In the final layers at Brea, Smilodon skulls show the hallmarks of starvation: thinning cortical bone, porous jaw edges, and growth lines arrested mid-stride. Some specimens, once cleaned of asphalt, reveal a grim double jeopardy. Healed jaw infections from broken sabers, paired with the telltale density loss of chronic malnutrition. There's no sign of dietary improvisation or last-minute adaptation. The cats that survived a fractured tooth lived long enough to starve, not because they couldn't hunt at all, but because their hunting had been reduced to a single, vanishing option. For a predator, built for one kind of kill, the collapse of megafauna was more than an inconvenience. It was a locked door with no key. The skulls from La Brea don't just show what Smilodon could do. They reveal what it could never learn to do. In the end, the perfect weapon became a dietary prison, and the evidence is stamped in every worn, starved, and chemically narrow skull left behind. The La Brea Tar Pits preserve a forensic timeline that reads like a slow-motion crime scene report. In the oldest layers, around 17,000 years ago, Smilodon populations tracked alongside herds of bison, camels, and ground sloths. Bone counts from these strata show predators and prey in steady abundance. The ecosystem balanced, but as the layers rise, the numbers begin to slide. Pollen cores extracted from the same sediments reveal a shift, grasses and shrubs thinning out, replaced by drought-tolerant plants. The climate was turning, and with it, the great herds began to vanish. By 13,000 years ago, the fossil record starts to thin. Large herbivores drop out of the sequence first, their bones replaced by smaller, more desperate prey. Smilodon remains persist, but the cats themselves are changing. Bone density scans from these mid-sequence skulls show cortical thinning, a clear sign of nutritional stress. Growth lines in the jawbones, normally smooth and regular, become jagged and stunted. Some individuals never reached full adult size. The predators were outlasting their prey, but only just. As the timeline advances toward 11,000 years ago, the evidence grows more dire. The last megafauna disappear almost entirely from the pit layers. Smilodon fossils from this period are marked by spike in malnutrition indicators, porous bone, arrested growth, and tooth wear far beyond what healthy cats display. In some skulls, the enamel is worn to the pulp, a sign of desperate scavenging or repeated failed hunts. The isotope signatures in these teeth narrow to a vanishing point, reflecting a diet with almost no variety. The cats were locked into a food web that had already collapsed. The very last dated Smilodon remains, those just above 10,200 years before present, tell the final chapter. These skulls show advanced infection, extreme bone loss, and in some, the sabers themselves are worn blunt or broken. There is no evidence of population rebound, no influx of new prey. The decline is not a sudden cliff, but a drawn-out spiral. Each fossil layer a grim progress report. In the end, the perfect predator was left with nothing to hunt and no tools to adapt. The La Brea sequence offers no rescue, only the slow, measurable disappearance of a species optimized for a world that no longer existed. Evolution's gamble on perfection isn't ancient history. The same trap that closed on Smilodon is quietly waiting for some of today's most famous survivors. Take the polar bear, an apex predator armed with a nose that can track a seal from miles away, fur that insulates against Arctic winds, and paws wide enough to walk on thin ice. But every advantage is tied to a single melting habitat. As sea ice shrinks, so does the polar bear's menu. Their bodies are built for seal hunting on frozen platforms, not scavenging on land or chasing caribou across tundra. Conservation records now list declining birth rates, shrinking body size, and increased starvation in populations forced off the ice. Giant pandas are another study in evolutionary tunnel vision. More than 99% of their diet comes from bamboo, a plant that's both low in nutrients and prone to mass die-off. Pandas have a digestive system barely suited to their chosen food, burning through up to 40 pounds of bamboo a day just to survive. When bamboo forests are cleared or hit by disease, pandas have nowhere else to turn. Their population crashes aren't random. They're the direct result of a body plan, optimized for a single vanishing resource. Koalas round out the list. Their entire existence depends on eucalyptus leaves, which are toxic to most mammals and fluctuate wildly with drought and fire. Koalas can't simply switch to another tree. Their teeth, liver, and gut bacteria are all tuned to process one kind of leaf and little else. When heat waves or disease hit eucalyptus groves, koalas face mass mortality events with no biological escape route. Conservation biologists use these cases as living warnings. The lesson isn't buried in the past. It's written in every failed adaptation and every species now teetering on the edge. Specialization can make a champion, but only for as long as the rules stay the same. The fossil record of Smilodon is a caution sign, not a relic. Evolution's winners become tomorrow's cautionary tales when flexibility gives way to perfection. Over 40,000 Smilodon fossils from the Brea Tar Pits reveal a story written in bone and enamel. The saber-toothed cat's most advanced weapon became its downfall. Biomechanical studies confirm that while their 7 to 11-inch canines could deliver lethal bites, those teeth were 40% weaker than modern lion teeth and broke in up to 10% of specimens examined. Dental pathology and isotope analysis show that once those sabers fractured, starvation and infection often followed. With no evidence, Smilodon could adapt to smaller or faster prey. Yet, the precise tipping point, the exact pace at which shifting prey populations doomed their survival, remains unresolved. Today, fossil evidence warns us that evolutionary specialization works only as long as the world stays constant. Polar bears, pandas, and koalas now face similar risks, documented in conservation reports. The skulls at Brea prove that in nature, dominance without adaptability leads not to glory, but to extinction.